I drank nothing but fruit and vegetable juice and water for 28 days straight. Here's what happened to my ulcerative colitis. Now, I'm not telling you to go do this. I'm just telling you what happened when I did. So of course, if you're inspired to try something like this, make sure you consult with your functional practitioner first. So in 2016, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. I lost 30 pounds, all my confidence with it. I started to have bowel movements 20 to 30 times a day, bloody, mucus, horrible, brain fog, anxiety, depression, the whole 9 yards, and I simply just wanted to know why. So in 2018, after having been on meds for approximately 2 years, I decided to go back to school and I decided to study natural nutrition. And at that point, I was open to other modalities other than, living on medication for the rest of my life and then having to deal with the side effects of those medications that actually turned out to have been and would have been worse than the actual symptoms that I was experiencing from ulcerative colitis. So prior to me actually embarking on this 28-day cleanse, when I was in school, I had horrible brain fog, horrible memory loss. I couldn't retain anything, which if you're going to school, you want to retain as much as you possibly can. I had confusion. I just didn't know where I was or what I was doing for half the day. It was absolutely horrible. Of course, alongside the other physical side effects of having ulcerative colitis. And I don't know how I came across it, but I remember watching this documentary called Super Juice Me by Jason Vale, and it was the Super Juice Me, the Big Juice Experiment. And I watched it. It was like an hour and 25 minutes on YouTube, and it had the most profound emotional impact on me that I knew I had to give it a try. And so I just simply made a decision, fuck it, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna try it. So what I did was I actually bought the book. Now, I bought the book for the recipes, although I'm pretty sure you can just find them all online now anyway. And then I embarked on the most interesting 28-day experiment of my life. And let me preface this by starting and saying that this wasn't the most enjoyable 28 days of my life. I remember being cold pretty much all the time because I was not having any sort of substance. I was literally drinking water, fruit juice, vegetable juice, all of the recipes from the book. But like I said, you probably don't need the book anyway. They're probably all online. And I remember starting and I was literally urinating out of my butt probably for the first week to probably to 10 days. And the very first thing that I noticed for me was the brain fog. It was within the first week. The brain fog lifted. I started to feel more energetic. I could see better. I could feel better. It was just so strange, the things that were starting to happening. But one of the most coolest things that happened to me was the fact that I was retaining information better. I wasn't just reading it, but I was actually starting to retain it. I started to feel so damn good. And I mean, like amazing. The best way to describe it was like I was high on juice. Like I felt light everywhere I was going. My mind was clear. I was alert of everything. I was sleeping well. It was absolutely incredible. And then the coolest things started to happen. Now, instead of peeing out of my butt many, many times a day, I started to have way less urgency. In fact, I think it was just before the second week, the urgency completely disappeared. Or it was actually before I went into the second week. So this must have been around day probably 6 or 7. The urgency to go to the bathroom 10, 15, 20 times a day suddenly went away, and I had my first semi-formed bowel movement. I just kept doing what I was doing, and by week 3, something shifted that I did not expect from literally just drinking straight water, fruit, and vegetable juice. And that was that I had my very first solid bowel movement. And I'm telling you, if you have ulcerative colitis or Crohn's or any sort of bowel disease or issue or IBS, you'll know that having a solid poop with no indigestion, no blood, no mucus, no issues is an accomplishment. And I'm just thinking back to it now. I can literally remember the day that it happened, and it makes me so excited because I was just like, wow, how did this even happen? Literally just drinking juice. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then it felt like another miracle happened. I had another solid poop. And then I had another solid poop, and then I had another solid one. And then this is when I decided to just take the leap of faith is what I'll call it. And this is exactly when I decided to quit my ulcerative colitis medication that I was using, cold turkey. Now, I didn't wean myself off. I was taking less medication than I was technically supposed to be in the first place, but I just kind of quit it cold turkey. And I just want to preface this by saying this is not something I'd recommend doing blind, but I decided to take the leap of faith. Like I said, if you're inspired, you want to try your own juice cleanse, make sure you speak to your functional medicine practitioner first. This is not advice. This is not medical advice. This is just what I did. So at the end of the 28-day juice cleanse, I weighed 148 pounds. I don't recall what I weighed before. I actually went back into my photos because I didn't know what I weighed before I started the juice cleanse, but luckily I did take a photo of it. And this is what I weighed at the very beginning. That's right, 160 pounds. And then this is exactly what I looked like when I was done. I was lean, I had my skin was clear, I felt amazing, I still felt high from the juices, and I literally felt like $1,000,000, and ever since then I have not gone back on the medication since. And that was the 28 days that literally changed everything for me, and starting to learn and trust that my body could heal if I just simply removed the stressors that were causing the inflammation and causing the ulcerative colitis and putting me on the autoimmune spectrum. Now, I'm still a student, I'm still learning, I'm still trying things on myself, I'm still testing things on myself, so follow along if you want to see what I try next.